Okay, this is the ash handling system operation description and programming. One thing I will tell you first off, there should be 6 of these service manuals in the possession of the plant, whether they're in the maintenance office, the engineering office, or the control room. Everything that we supplied is in here, including this description that we're going to go through right here. So if there's any questions that somebody has, well, is it supposed to operate this way, that way, or whatever, this will tell you exactly how it was set up to operate. So we're going to go through here, and as you read the thing, it right here basically says that we have replaced in kind the components, okay, and the system remains unchanged as far as the way it should operate. The way you've been operating, you should be able to continue operating it just like that. So like changing tires on your car, you really don't change how the car drives, you just change the component. And that's what we've done. Separators remove 90% of your ash. The bag filter removes the other 99% of your ash. We did add a cylinder operated flap gate that took the place of the weighted flap gate underneath the bag filter. And this is done for the simple purpose of we want to make sure every time that system cycles that that gate opens up, because we want to keep that bag filter empty. Sometimes the flap gates get misadjusted, and if you move the weight too far back, they don't open. I will get into that later on when we go through there. The unloading is, the only difference in that is the UltraFlow unloader mixer has 2 sets of paddles in there versus the 1 screw that you had before. So it will actually mix the ash better than just screwing it out through there. There's a cutoff gate above the rotary vane feeder. The rotary vane feeder is adjustable for the speed to increase or decrease the amount of ash going in there. You activate the system by starting the vacuum blower. That energizes the timer paddle on the bag filter, which is very important that the bag filter should be operating anytime the blower is running. Okay? So it's set up that it will start pulsing. It'll clean the bags. The way it cleans the bag is the compressed air does not actually blow the bag clean. What it does is it puffs the bag out from the cage, and then because there's a vacuum on it, it'll puff the bag out and the vacuum will snap the bag back. That's the cleaning action, not the blowing of the air. But the air must be dry and free from oil or water. And that's very important, otherwise you will blind your bags and be changing the bags more often than they need to be changed. Okay, the flap gate will be closed. The system vacuum breaker will be closed. The vacuum you start up. One thing they did tell me that you normally run this on a automated startup and shutdown, that the system starts automatically, runs for 20 minutes and then shuts itself down and starts up, and unless you have a problem, it'll continue to do this, I guess, all day long. They did tell me that they do go down and check inside to make sure that it's not bridged over or plugged up. So this is just a sequence of what, and don't get too set on these numbers. These numbers can be changed. This is just what we initially recommend. Pulling the ash for 60 seconds. Then the riser line vacuum breaker will open. It'll pull ash up the riser line to clean it out before the system vacuum breaker opens, to keep the ash from falling back down and plugging down at the bottom. If you experience plugging at the bottom of that line very often, have somebody increase the amount of time that that vacuum breaker stays open to clear that line completely before the system's vacuum breaker opens. Okay, the riser line vacuum breaker closes after the system vacuum breaker opens to keep the dust from blowing back down in there. And I can tell you right now that is set probably at 2 seconds instead of 5 seconds. Because when the dust dumps into the ash silo, the air that's in the silo has to get out of there. It'll come back down that ash line and go out the bin vent filter, is what's the purpose of the bin vent filter. After that opens, the flap gate opens up to dump the ash into the silo along with the weighted flap gates. Then everything closes and then it starts back again. One thing we supplied was a vacuum transmitter, but for whatever reason that was not in the contract to be hooked up. It's not hooked up. It is a very good way of telling if the system is operating correctly. I have a feeling that maybe in the future they will wire it up, and what it does is it tells you if you get a high vacuum on the system, it tells you if you have a low vacuum on the system, and it will actually tend to, with a high vacuum, it should, well, yours don't have intakes, so it can't close an intake, but it will tell you if when you start the system up and there's no ash in the line, whether that line has got sufficient vacuum to pull. And that just keeps repeating over and over. Normally that vacuum transmitter would tell you that the line's empty, that the incinerator hopper is empty, and shut you down. It's my understanding y'all are running completely off a timer that says it takes us 20 minutes to pull that, and then we're going to shut it down. So this is basically the sequence of the vacuum breaker, the riser line vacuum breaker, the flap valve. This is a 95-second timer, and it's saying we're going to allow you to pull ash for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, we're going to open the riser line vacuum breaker. It's going to stay open from 60 to 75 seconds. At the 70-second count, the system vacuum breaker is going to open, which will kill any vacuum to pull any ash. Then at 75 seconds, the flap gate will open, dumping the ash in there. Again, do not get too tied up on these numbers right here. Those numbers have actually been increased to 100 instead of a 95 seconds. It's now a 100-second counter. And these have been adjusted accordingly and may have to be adjusted after the system is started up and ran during the 7-day test period that they have. We will determine if those numbers are good or if we can tweak them a little bit, maybe to give you better pulling and quicker clean out of the system. The ash unloading system, again, should be exactly the way it was before. You push the start button, which energizes the mixer. The water valve will open. 10 seconds later, the rotary vane feeder starts. 5 seconds later, the gate opens. I can tell you right now, if you run water for 15 seconds before you start getting any ash, that truck's going to be full of water.
Yep.
So I'm sure everybody here knows how to compensate for that, either with a hand valve or those times, again, will probably be adjusted during this test running, which will allow you to get a closer to an automatic startup on it. Most jobs do not run these unloaders automated. They go through there, they do all of this by turning their switches, and then they control their water when they start seeing the ash. So if you're able to run it automatic, then that tells me you have a pretty good system as far as the ash flowing and all. And then shut down, it's going to close the gate first, then it's going to stop the rotary feeder 6 seconds later. And again, they're running water for 20 seconds. I'd say that will be tuned down, or otherwise at the very end you'll wash the top of the truck out. And it says right here, time delays are shown only recommended for startup, and they will be adjusted after the initial startup of equipment. So that's just a brief overview of the operation, how the system operates. It is in this book, and I would recommend maybe having that book in the control room, or the maintenance shack should get at least one copy of it. There's 6 copies that are here somewhere.